This is Maureen Kafkas, the Brain BS coach, here to tell you about the episode today. In this episode, I'm going to share with you how I apply what I've learned through thought work and human design into my daily life. And I'm going to share 3 things that you should be aware of when it comes to how your brain works. So sit back, settle in for episode number 122 of the Brain BS podcast, Understanding Brain BS. Do you want more out of your life but not exactly sure what that might be? Are you longing for something but can't quite put your finger on what it is? That is the universe speaking to you, and it is time to listen up. I'm your host, Maureen Kafkas, the Brain BS coach. I created the Brain BS podcast to help people define what success means to them and show them how to get it. I help you to let go of fear and doubt and prepare your nervous system for success. I show you how to understand your own energy and to trust yourself to make all the decisions. If you are ready to go inward and stop looking outside yourself for all the answers, this is the podcast for you. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Brain BS podcast. I'm happy to be back. I missed doing the podcast, but I actually really did enjoy taking a break and unplugging and just having fun and playing lots of pickleball and getting lots of sun and socializing. And now I am totally ready to be back at work. So I've been going back and forth. I keep going back and forth about what I want this first episode to be about. I keep thinking about how should I focus on Eckhart Tolle and how to separate fact from fiction in your mind and review that concept, or talk about the importance of the most important relationship ever, about how to deal with relationships. I'm thinking of all these different topics, but I think what I've come to the conclusion is that I'm going to share with you the brain BS that I dealt with in traveling this holiday season, and I'm going to show you how this work that I've done actually applies to real life, and it works. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of walk you through it and how I manage all the brain BS, because let me just tell you, the airlines was a total shit show this year at the holidays, and those of you who traveled know exactly what I mean, especially with that whole debacle with Southwest and all the flights being canceled over and over. That impacted both the airports in Illinois, and it impacted our travel in pretty major ways. The morning that we were going to Santa Barbara from Illinois, the kids were going too, so they went in a separate car because we couldn't find a car that would be big enough for all of us, and they headed to the airport, and then Bob and I came after. I should also add here that the kids were going to LA. We were going to Santa Barbara, so we were the only ones with a layover. Well, right when we got in the car and we were in the Uber, we were still in front of our house. We got a notice that our trip had been, or our flight had been delayed, majorly delayed, like I forget how many hours. And the cab driver, or the Uber driver, asked us, "Do you want me to take you back home? Would you rather deal with this at home, or do you want me to take you to the airport?" In the past, I might not have known what to do, but in this particular case, I knew exactly what to do because I am living my human design. So I checked in with myself and my body, and I thought, should we stay home or can we go? Is there any reason why we should not go to the airport? Does it serve us better to go? And my intuition was a yes, and my splenic authority, which is part of my human design, did not tell me not to do it. So we went to the airport, and I trusted that somehow it was all going to work out. And then I encouraged my husband to be the same way. We got to the airport, and we got more delayed, and then because of those delays, we were going to miss our second flight. So we couldn't get to our second flight, because by the time we got to San Francisco, that flight was long gone. And we knew that when we got on that plane, that we didn't know what was going to happen to us when we landed in San Francisco, and that we were probably going to have to find a place to stay at the airport, or it's the unknown. That can be kind of unsettling when you go somewhere and you're not sure what's going to happen. But again, my intuition said go, and my splenic authority was not telling me it was a bad idea. So we got on the flight, we get to San Francisco. We go and get in the line at customer service to help us with how to handle the situation. And the lady says, I can't, many people told us we could not get a flight to Santa Barbara that night because there was only one flight at 11 o'clock and there was no seats on it. It was fully booked and there was no way we were getting to Santa Barbara. This particular lady said, well, I have good news for you. We can get you to San Luis Obispo, which is way closer than San Francisco. Would you want to fly there and then get an Uber from San Luis Obispo, which is only an hour and a half away, to Santa Barbara? So we went back and forth and we were trying to decide and we were just like trusting the process. And there, again, no splenic authority telling me not to do it. Intuition was like, it's a go. We signed up to get on this flight, but we had to wait 5 hours before it was going to leave. So we went, we had drinks and we ate and stuff. And then when we were coming back to the gate, we saw that the Santa Barbara gate was right next door to the San Luis Obispo gate. And this is brain BS right here. My husband says, should I just go try one more time? And my brain wanted to offer, no, we have a plan. It's all in place. Let's just go with it. Like, that's what my brain offered me. But it took me like all of 2 seconds to realize that was brain BS. My brain just wanted certainty because it's way more comfortable than not knowing what's going to happen. And I told my husband, go ahead. If you think that we could get on it or it's a possibility, go for it. So he goes over to the agent in the line and he tells them that we're trying to get to Santa Barbara, but we were told that there was no seats on that flight and could they put us on standby for trying to get, on that flight. And then Bob starts talking to the guy and he's being real nice to him and they're kind of getting along. And next thing we know, we're at the top of the list for standby. And I don't think it's just because Bob was nice. I think it's because we're Premier Platinum flyers because we go back and forth so much. So we got put to the first of the line. And not only did we get on that plane to Santa Barbara after everyone told us we weren't going to a million times, we actually got extra leg space and we got to sit right next to each other. I just want you to see when I share this story, how much trust was required, how much listening to my body and my intuition, and just trusting that the next step was going to be revealed and that it was all going to work out the way it should. We didn't get really crabby. We didn't get cranky. We didn't get whiny or complaining. We didn't think it should be different than it was. We just totally accepted the reality of the situation, and we just kept dealing with it from a really good place, and it was almost miraculous that it worked out. Very exciting stuff here. So as I'm sharing this, though, I'm realizing that I use my human design all the time to guide me in everything that I do, but I couldn't have done that if I didn't do the thought work piece first. So I want to revisit some of the fundamentals in thought work of how to apply this work to your daily life, because I think it's really important that you understand that, and I think it's got to be a big part of the conversation. So love you, love you, love you, human design, and you are going to be a big piece of the work that I do, and I plan on talking about a lot of that in March. But this month, February, I'm going to dedicate to thought work. There are 3 things I want you to be aware of when it comes to your mind. The first is that we believe a lot of things to be factual that are not. Second, we have 2 parts of us trying to achieve totally different things. The primitive brain wants to keep us comfy and safe, and our soul, our higher self, wants the complete opposite, because the only way we can grow is if we go out of our comfort zone. The third thing that I want you to realize is that our brain, or ego, or primitive brain, whatever you want to call it, is a troublemaker, and it needs to be supervised. We literally are being led by our brains to create the results that we have in our life. We're creating them with the way we're thinking. Our thoughts lead to feelings, those inspire us to take actions, and then that's what gives us our results. That's why it's so important to understand what's going on in our mind. But for now, for today, and for the purpose of this episode, I want you to understand how to decipher fact from fiction. I want you to understand that our thoughts, no matter how many times we have them, no matter how much we believe them, will never be factual. Okay? Is that sinking in? Donald Trump is my go-to for explaining this concept because he's so polarizing. Some people absolutely love him and some people absolutely hate him. So it's not Donald Trump himself that's causing you to feel anything. It's what you're thinking about Donald Trump that makes you feel anything. And then that leads to the action of voting for him or not voting for him. And then the result is it's always going to come back to you. But what the primary thing that I want you to understand is that thoughts are not factual. And we need to understand when something is factual, an actual circumstance that everybody would agree on in a court of law, and when it's a thought and not everybody would agree on it. Because if everybody doesn't agree on it, it's not factual. No matter what you think it is, no matter how much you believe in that cause, no matter how important you think something is, just because you think that does not make it true. It's really helpful to know this, to be able to understand what's real and what's not real, because then you have the option of creating something new once you realize what you're creating with the way you're thinking in automatic mode is giving to you. Does that make sense? So before we can go on to create new and amazing things for ourselves in our life, we first have to understand how our brain works when it's at the subconscious level, when we're not managing it, when we're just in automatic mode and we have no awareness and we're just living life, which is like the majority of people out there. So I want you to realize that it's so important to get this down first and to see where you go when you're protecting yourself, when you feel threatened, when you feel like your inner child wound is being triggered, when things aren't going the way you want it to, when you've put on weight, when you don't feel pretty anymore because you're getting older, when you have to deal with cellulite. All these things are going to trigger really uncomfortable emotions in you, and you're going to react the majority of the times and not respond. When we separate fact from fiction and we learn how to manage our mind, we learned how to respond in a thoughtful, considerate, and conscious way. This is what we call living consciously. This is a cornerstone of everything that I do at the Brain BS podcast. It's all about living consciously, choosing your thoughts on purpose, and creating whatever it is you want in life. You define the success and then having a nervous system to support it. I can help you do that. We can do that together. We should do it together. That's what it's all about, because we're all the same, you and I. None of us are really different. We all experience the same emotions, the same thoughts, the same feelings. We take the same actions. We create a lot of the same results, but the circumstances are different. So when you look at it on the surface, it doesn't seem the same, but it's actually all the same. We are all experiencing the same human condition. So none of us is really different than the other one. It's important to understand that at the beginning of this work. And we're going to talk a lot about the psychology that you need to manage your brain before we go into the spiritual part of it. Because the psychological piece is a big part. Because that's how we interact with our fellow humans on a regular basis. And I personally believe that that needs to be addressed first before we can go into the spiritual aspect of it. That's the way I learned it. That's the way I think it's effective. And I want to share that process with you. I hope that you are going to be joining me in 2023 as we explore how to create the success we want and having a nervous system to support it. And I am really looking forward to sharing a lot of different things with you: human design, thought work, the model, universal law, relationship work, all of it. Because everything that we do here at the Brain BS podcast is in order to create a loving, more compassionate, kind, and generous community with a much higher vibration and a higher frequency so that we can all collaborate and support one another. Next episode, I'm going to give you some tools of how to decipher fact from fiction and how to manage your mind. I know you learned something valuable here today. See you next episode. Thanks for being here and learning about Brain BS. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. If you did, please take a little time to do a quick review, give me 5 stars, and share it with everyone you know. If you're actually interested in being on the podcast yourself or have questions about it, you can find me in the Brain BS podcast community on Facebook. See you next time.